Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show. Today is Friday, July 8th, and this is episode number 26. So that means we are now officially halfway through the year. We've made it. Yay us. So it's been a bit of a weird week. It wasn't looking like it was going to be a very busy one as the week began. Mostly because America was celebrating July 4th. Which is the day they realised that they could screw the country up all on their own and not need the British to help them. But yeah, so they were celebrating that, and because that was a Monday, that meant that was Tuesday for us here in Australia. So for the first sort of 2 days of the week, there was no news, because anytime America has a long weekend, the video game world just essentially shuts down. Don't know why it is that way, when, 2 of the 3 console makers are based out of Japan, but hey, they do what they do. But yeah, so there was some news, at the start of the week, but then it really literally picked up over the last sort of 2 days. And there was, a Skull and Bones showcase this morning from Ubisoft, and there was a Nacon event as well from Nacon. So we'll get into some of the Nacon stuff. I'm not going to go through all of it, because some of the things they showed off were they were gameplay trailers, but they weren't actually showing anything, and it's been really, yeah. So we'll get into that when we get into that thing. So yeah, we've picked a couple of things we're going to talk about from there. We'll get into Skull and Bones later on, but for now, let's get into the news, and we're going to start off with the return of Sword Art Online. Specifically, we're talking about Sword Art Online Alicization Lycoris, which was released back in 2020 for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. At the time, people kind of just went, hey, you brought other Sword Art Online games to Switch, why isn't this one on Switch? And Bandai Namco just sort of were radio silent on it. Last week, I got an email from EB Games here in Australia. It said, hey, check out all these announcements from the Nintendo Direct. And it was a pretty simple thing. There wasn't anything fancy about it. It was just a generic, hey, we've got all these things to talk about, rah, rah, rah. And I was looking through there going, maybe they've got a different date to what I was aware of. So I left it alone, so sort of reading through it. And at the bottom was this game. And they were like, coming 2022. And I looked at it and I thought, that doesn't seem right. Because, I watched the Direct. I watched the Direct twice. And I don't recall seeing this in the Direct at all. So I reached out to the guys at Vooks and I said, hey, am I crazy, or did I miss this in the Direct? Because I'd done some research. I saw EB Games had a listing on their website, and I Googled and I hunted around in databases and ratings boards and everything, and I couldn't find it. So I reached out to them and said, hey, what, either I'm crazy or this is leaked. And they did their own investigations, and we came to the same conclusion that this was leaked. So they ran a story. I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but I generally don't deal in rumors on Maxi-Geek for various reasons. But they ran a story. It got picked up. And then the next day, EB pulled the listing. They were like, oh, no listing for this one. But then over the weekend at Anime Expo in Los Angeles, Bandai Namco hosted a panel, and one of the things they announced was Sword Art Online Alicization Lycoris for Switch. So yeah, what is interesting about it is, if we look at the screens, it doesn't look horrible, but this is definitely one of those ones where the game was clearly made for more powerful hardware, and they're just trying to force it onto the Switch without, hampering it in any way, shape, or form. It does look fine, as I said. There's nothing wrong with it. The details there, you can clearly see, who that is. You can see who that is, right? The problem that I have though is when you start to play it. Let me just mute the old site here. We don't have the audio playing, because they do like to ping me for that one. When you see it in motion, so here, this is a cutscene, right? Or it's a rendered cutscene, I should say, rendered in the engine, which is why it looks so clear. And you're like, okay, that's not so bad. The problem is when it gets to here, right? You can see on the castle it's struggling. on the crystals there, it struggles here. It's on the trees. You can see it not being able to render things correctly. So, yeah, I don't know. Just, it includes, the 4 Ancient Apostles DLCs. Nothing on the other DLC was just announced like the day before it for the other versions of the game. Memories of something or other. Literally down here. Blooming of Matricia. I had M in there, so that's why I thought memories. But yeah, so this isn't the first one I've got here in the story that, Hollow Realization and Fatal Bullet are both on Switch already. So Hollow Realization is essentially the first sort of season of the anime, with them being stuck in the world of Sword Art Online, and then Fatal Bullet is the one where the government basically asks Kirito to go into another online game. This one's all about guns, to help find the person who's killing off people. So it's cool that it's coming, because I do know some players who will enjoy this RPG on the go, but it does highlight the double dipping effect that Bandai Namco love to do. Activision do it as well, just not as frequently, but everything from Bandai Namco has released on Xbox and PlayStation and PC, and then a year or 2 years later it comes to Switch. So yeah, it isn't unexpected that their games will eventually come to Switch. Like, I'm not saying Elden Ring is coming to Switch, don't get me wrong, that's not going to happen, but for games that when you see them you go, oh, that'd be good on Switch, they tend to not announce anything, and then they announce it a year afterwards. The upside though, I suppose, is we get all the DLC included, and we don't have to worry about paying so extra for it there. But yeah, as I said, it's a bit of a weird way to get into that one, but some news anyway there. Now, however, we're going to talk about a bit of sad news, and that is that the Xbox Games with Gold program is moving around a little. I say moving around a little, but it's probably not the best way to describe it. Essentially, Xbox have announced that after the September games that are released, they will no longer be including Xbox 360 titles as part of the membership. So the full statement from Xbox that was sent out to members during the week just says, from 1st of October 2022, the monthly games provided to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and Xbox Live Gold members via the Games with Gold will no longer include Xbox 360 titles. We have reached the limit of our ability to bring Xbox 360 games to the catalogue. However, Games with Gold will continue to include exciting Xbox One titles and exclusive savings each month. Now, this is the interesting part. This will not impact any Xbox 360 games that you have downloaded before October 2022. Any Xbox 360 titles that you redeem via Games with Gold before that time are yours to keep on your Xbox account, regardless of whether you continue your subscription. So, what this means is that at the moment, if I don't have it there, but I'll bring it up in a second. But what it means is that when you're playing, every month, they would release 2 Xbox One titles and 2 Xbox 360 titles as part of the Games with Gold program, which is pretty sort of standard stuff. We've had that now since the Xbox One launched, essentially. Since the program launched, I should say. But going forward, that will no longer be the case. They will no longer be providing the Xbox 360 games. So it'll just be the Xbox One titles. Now, that in and of itself wouldn't be an issue if, and I do have to stress if, they, add another game in there, right? So this month, here's the lineup for this month. So at the moment, the way it works is on the first of the month, you get 2 games available. One is the full month release, and then one is an Xbox 360 game. Now, that Xbox 360 game is only available for the first 15 days of the month, and then it will switch over to another Xbox 360 game, which will run for the rest of the month. So throughout the full month, you get 3 games. But the other Xbox One title it starts in the middle of the month and rolls through to the middle of next month. So Relicta, this one here, that won't be available until next weekend to add to your collection. The fact that they're saying that all Xbox 360 games that you have in your library will now be available as part of your collection, even if you cancel your Xbox Live Gold, is a pretty good thing. So the Games with Gold program has been going on now for, I want to say, like 5 years or so. So it's been, it's probably even been longer than that. I'm just looking it up to see when it started. So it's been going on for some time. So 2014 is when the Xbox One version kicked into place. So it's sort of been, 8 years now, where they've been dishing out, 2 or 3 games every month. Well, they were doing 2 games before that, then now they're doing, 2 and 2. So what is very interesting is we've been getting all these extra games, for months now. And if you've collected the 2 Xbox 360 games, for the length of time that the program's been running, which, just to put into context, this year alone, so the first, starting at, the 1st of January or 2nd of January that it actually kicked off, was Radiant Silvergun, Space Invaders Infinity, Hydrophobia, Band of Bugs, Sacred 2 Fallen Angel, SpongeBob's Truth or Square, Outpost Calicoy X, MX vs ATV Alive, Hydro Thunder Hurricane, Viva Pinata Party Animals, Super Meat Boy, Rascals, and Thrillville Off the Rails. Alright, so those alone give you, 13, 14 games already. Right, so there's another 2 months to go. So you'll end up with about 16 games for the year, right? But when you add in 2021, 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, and you go back all the way back, the very first game that was included was back in 2013, and that was Fable 3, right? If you have that game and then every other one, so some 230-ish games by the end of it, you will be able to keep those as part of your collection going forward without having to subscribe back to the program. Now, this is unexpected. This is not unexpected, I should say, as PlayStation did the same thing last year. Not last year, maybe the year before, where they dropped the PlayStation 3 / PS Vita support from the program, just offering 2 PS4 games and a PS5 game when that launched. So they dropped the PS3 stuff earlier. It was just PlayStation 4 games for a while. Then the PS5 launched and they brought that in. So, not unexpected that Xbox would be doing it for their older platform. But, as I said, PlayStation did, up their more recent hardware offerings in terms of giving games away. So hopefully Xbox do something similar. But, if they don't, it's not the end of the world. I just hope they do, because the dollar value for there, if you're not somebody who plays games online continuously, if you play once in a blue moon and you had your $80 a year, so you were getting 4 games to play a month, the value sort of drops a fair bit, because the price isn't lowering, but at the moment they're not replacing those games with anything. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But it's not unexpected, and it is a little sad, but it is what it is, because it was always bound to happen. Speaking of things that we had no idea were happening, overnight LEGO and Nintendo announced Project Percy, which was the code name for the Mighty Bowser, which is the official product name of the LEGO Bowser figurine that, if you're watching the video, you're seeing on your screen. The Mighty Bowser is massive. He stands 32 centimeters tall. He's some 28 centimeters wide and some 24 centimeters deep. He's big. But what makes it really impressive is that the Mighty Bowser is a puppet. So I will throw on this video here. And you can see this guy with an awesome mustache. He will explain it in a moment. But the Mighty Bowser is a puppet. which means that there are levers sort of between his body and the shell that will manipulate his arms, his head. Here you go, you watch him here moving him. And if you open up the mouth all the way, he shoots a fireball. So there is a shot later on with Lego Mario in front of Bowser. So the Bowser figurine does interact with the Lego Mario, Lego Luigi, and Lego Peach, who's releasing on August 1st. Just wait for that shot for the... Just waiting for it. It'll come up in a second, I know it. But yeah, so as I said, the Bowser figurine is absolutely massive. The problem with this figurine is that the price is also massive. So to buy the Lego, or Lego The Mighty Bowser, that'll set you back $400 Australian dollars. So when I say this thing is big, like, so when we say the dimensions of Bowser, that includes the platform, right? So he's not 30 centimeters wide on his own, but once you add in the platform that he can stand on, that's where you get the depth. But yeah, he is he's a beast. So it's going to be one of those interesting ones where, like, I'd love to have that on my shelf, especially because he does move essentially as a puppet would. The only problem is, A, it is very, very big, and B, it is very, very expensive. And that seems to be the problem that Lego are having these days with their sets, is that the price of them is always going up and up and up. And sometimes the value doesn't match the dollar amount anymore. And I know people say, "Oh, the cost of things is going up across the board." It's like, yeah, that's the case for a lot of things. But Lego have been doing this now for about 4 or 5 years, where the price is increasing on things, but the actual the value return isn't there. So a number of years ago, Lego released the R2-D2 figure. He's 30 odd centimeters tall. He's quite complex, and that was $270, I think, when that launched. And then recently they re-released it. Essentially, they modified it, made it one of the Ultimate Collector Series pieces. It's the same basic shape. Well, it's R2-D2. It's the same basic shape, but it's the same mechanics sort of inside and everything. They just did a little more detail on the outside. But then that was like $400. And you could go, okay, cool, they made some changes so that, it's a different thing. But it's like, they didn't have to redesign the inside. It's all the same. The reason why I'm bringing up R2-D2 is they also then, before then they did a BB-8, Lego figure. And he was $220, for in terms of Star Wars stuff. And then they did a Dio, who was the droid from The Rise of Skywalker, the last of the Skywalker saga. And, he was $180 when he launched. But, in terms of pieces, $180 ago when the R2 that I have, when that first released, that would get you, like an X-Wing. Now the X-Wings are $300. So the price on the Lego is going up and up and up. And we're not getting anything extra for it. We're just paying more for it. Now, if there were only 2 or 3 Lego factories in the world and Lego was more and more popular and that was causing the issue, I'd say, yeah, sure, that's fine. I understand. There's only so much that we can do about this. We can't. If there's 3 factories making Lego, we have to give them time to actually, create, all the all the sets they need and then ship them around the world. The problem is, and let me bring this up here. Since the Lego price is starting up, Lego have announced 3 new factories. So the factory in Denmark, which is this purple one over here, this is the original factory, right? Then they opened up one in the Czech Republic. Then they opened up one in Hungary, and then they opened up one in Mexico. Now, the one in Mexico was mostly going to supply the US. Not a problem with that one. No, those were sort of the 4 they had. It's basically 3 in Europe, 1 in the continental Americas. That was it. Then they opened up one in China. Then they announced one for Vietnam, which is, as you can see on the map here, under construction. And they've just announced another one for America in Virginia. So this is the problem that I have, is there are now, 6 or 5 functional factories, one under construction, one to be opened by 2025. They're making billions of dollars a year with their product, and that just seems to be because they keep upping the price. So I'm very cautious on buying Lego these days, mostly because every time I do, they seem to, just re-release another set later down the line that looks very similar or has very, offers up more of the same sort of thing. The problem is, as I said, I'm putting $300-400 into these things, and I'm not really getting a return. Like, as I said, this figurine is fantastic, this Bowser figure, and I'd love to have it, but it's a little too big to put on any of my shelves, and again, that cost is just so much. So, we'll have to wait and see on that one, see how they shake it out in the long run, but hopefully they can start lowering the price on Lego if they're going to have, a second factory in the Asia region. Moving on to some happier Nintendo-related news. Today they announced the next title for Nintendo 64 members in their Nintendo Switch Online program. Specifically, Pokemon Puzzle League will be arriving as part of the expansion pack app next Friday, the 17th of July. So what is interesting about this is last month we had Pokemon Snap release. That was the last of the previously announced titles. So when the service was announced last September, they said, hey, day one, we're going to have these games on the service. And then afterwards they said, hey, these are games that we're going to roll out in the future, right? And they had Banjo-Kazooie, Majora's Mask, Mario Golf, things like that. Once that last game released, the question was okay, but what's going to be next? Many people sort of suspected that there would be a direct or something like that. Just notice it's not doing default HD. So yeah, so many people thought we'd have to wait till September for the the September Direct, if they do one, to announce sort of what is coming. What's the next series of games to be added to the service. But they didn't. They just sort of surprised everyone and said, actually no, it's coming much sooner, and we'll have it next week. So this obviously now raises the question about what games we're going to get next. Are we going to see more Pokemon spin-offs? Are we going to get the stadium games, right? Are we going to get Hey Pikachu? It's very unlikely we'll get that one. Or are we going to start seeing other things like 1080 snowboarding, Wave Race, maybe some classic Nintendo 64 games from Rare, or maybe the Star Wars games? Honestly, we don't know. What, as I said, is interesting is that we didn't know that they had another game planned, but that's what they decided to do. So yeah, there you go, Pokemon Puzzle League. It is very cool that they're still bringing more games to the service, and we don't have to wait. Of course, we don't know if that's going to be the case going forward. If this is a once-off, and we've now, for August we won't get anything. We have to wait till September. We don't know. But yeah, I think it's great that they're doing that. So something that we sort of saw about, not sure about. That's probably the wrong word. Something we learnt about earlier in the week was that NBA 2K23 would be coming later this year. I know, shocker. My word, another NBA game from 2K. Who would have foreseen that one coming? What we did learn earlier in the week, though, was that there would be 2 editions featuring Michael Jordan. There's the Michael Jordan edition, which is really very creatively named, and then there is the Championship edition. And we'll get into those details, what they contain in a moment. Beyond the, those, it was announced, excuse me, it was announced yesterday that in America through GameStop, so it's potentially we might see it come here because EB Games here is, part of the GameStop company umbrella. But in America, as part of GameStop there would be a WNBA variant in terms of a cover that would feature two, members of the WNBA on that one. But overnight, we got information on the standard, the regular edition release, and its cover athlete, and as well as the digital deluxe. So let's get into it, because it is very, very confusing, because it is a 2K game across platforms. So there are 4 editions. There are 5 covers, but there are 4 editions of the game. There's the standard, which here in Australia will come with Devin Booker, who is from the Phoenix Suns. There is the digital deluxe, which again features Devin Booker. There is the Michael Jordan edition and the championship edition. So they're the 4 editions of the game. Beyond the 4 editions, though, as I said, there is that WNBA variant. If you do order that in online from the US, that is just the standard version of the game. That is not a special extra edition. That is just a different cover for the base model of the game. Right. So here are the cover arts for the 4 versions. So this is the purple and orange with Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns. That is your standard edition cover. The blue and yellow, again with Devin Booker, this is the digital deluxe version of the game. The Michael Jordan, which is mostly red and white, that is the Michael Jordan edition version of the game. And then the one that has his jersey on it, that is the championship edition of the game. So I said, there's 4 versions of the game here in Australia. Not all of them are for all platforms, so bear with me while we go through it. So the standard edition is coming out, so all these versions are out on September 9th. They've not announced any sort of early access period like they've done in years previously. So at the moment, it's September 9 is the date for these versions. And we'll go from there. So September 9 will see the game release for all consoles. So that's PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Switch, and PC. On Xbox One and PlayStation 4, the game's RRP, their recommended retail price, is $100. On Switch and PC, it is $90. And on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, it is $120. Okay, so the prices are, they vary a fair bit. PC games are notoriously cheaper than the console editions, and the Switch version for this series has always been $10 less than the others. The Digital Deluxe Edition is only for PlayStation and Xbox consoles. What this does is it gives you the game for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, or Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. So if you get the standard edition on a PlayStation 4 and you put it in a PlayStation 5, you only get to play the PlayStation 4 version of the game. There's no free upgrade for the 2K games. If you want to get the upgrade, you then need to buy either the Digital Deluxe Edition or one of the other more expensive ones. The standard edition will not provide you that free upgrade. Right? If you opt for the Digital Deluxe Edition on either Xbox or PlayStation, you'll get a bunch of extra content. So it is $130, so it is $10 more than the standard PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X or S edition, the standard edition, but that gets you both generations. So if you have a PlayStation 4 now and you plan on getting a PlayStation 5 later in the year, you can get the Digital Deluxe, so you get both. Again, you don't need to. The PlayStation 4 version will work in the PlayStation 5. This just ensures that you have the best version for your console if you do upgrade your hardware. I'm not going to read through everything that you get in here. I will put the story in the chat, and I'll throw the story in the box on the screen here for YouTube as well. But it comes with a bunch of content for my team, so some tokens and packs, as well as a bunch of stuff for my career, so XP boosts and things like that. The Michael Jordan edition is available for all platforms. So that is Switch, PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox Series X and S, and Xbox One, and that is $150. Okay, so if you have an Xbox One and you want an Xbox Series X version as well for the future, this is the version you can buy because it'll give you access to both. It also gives you all the content from the digital deluxe edition. So if you're a PC or Switch player and you want, you know, the XP boosts and the cover star variants and all that sort of stuff, you have to buy the $150 version. There's no $130 version for Switch or PC. So you either get the standard version at $90 or you get the one with all the digital content for $160. There's no in between on that one. What it also does provide you though is $100,000 in the virtual currency for the game, which you can use to buy additional things throughout the My Neighborhood experience and all that the game is known for. That is essentially it. The Michael Jordan edition also does come with some bonus like challenges, like you play as Michael Jordan when he was playing, you know, in the late 80s, and you've got to like try and score a few baskets to win, the match, you know, just as he did in that game. So just things like that. There are 11 of those that are coming back from a previous version of the game, and there's 5 that are all new. So they're all being completely remade for the modern version of the game, but they're all there. Those that are only for the next generation. So Switch owners do not get that. Even if you get the Michael Jordan edition, you don't get that. The Championship edition. This is where the money comes in. This is where the big bucks go if you want everything. This is not for Switch. Switch owners do not get this. This is PC, PlayStation, and Xbox only. It includes everything from the Michael Jordan edition. So the $100,000 in virtual currency, all the digital deluxe exclusive content, so the player variants, the XP boost, and whatnot. You also get a 10% XP boost to the My Team season progression. So it's not a 2-hour XP boost. It's a 10% permanent buff to your season progression, and a 10% XP boost to the My Career progression. You also get an exclusive Michael Jordan themed go-kart for the My Neighborhood area. But the big reason why it's so much more expensive, not for the permanent boost, not for the go-kart, is that it also comes with a 12-month subscription to NBA League Pass. So NBA League Pass is literally, if you want to watch NBA games and you don't have access to, like, you know, the sports network that it airs on, this will be your way of doing it. This is Netflix, but for NBA, right? Probably not the best example because Netflix is not live, but this is just, you know, access to the NBA, you know, service. When you get this, you'll get a code sent to your email. You're asked to register. You'll get a code sent to your email address, and you have to redeem it by the end of the year. The code should come by the end of September, and you've got a few months to redeem it, and then you get 12 months access from that point. With this, though, you can buy the NBA League Pass on its own. You do not have to buy this edition of the game to get the pass. It is, you know, here as it is a little cheaper if you do go this way, but it's not that much cheaper. So if you're humming and hawing about this, you really want that League Pass, but you can't really afford this version of the game, you can get the League Pass, you know, a month later on your own, but it's just sort of, as I said, it's a little cheaper here. But yeah, so that's the NBA 2K13 breakdown. Now, we don't have any gameplay details. Those will still come. They'll come via the NBA Courtside report that we get all the time. They do those, you know, sort of once every week, you know, once every 2 weeks, sort of early on, and then we get sort of once a week as we get closer and closer to launch. You know, in years past, they've you know, gone into insane depth about the, you know, control scheme, about how, you know, the handling of the ball works when you're on defense, how the My Neighborhood works, all that sort of stuff. So they definitely dive deep into all those aspects. We just have to wait and see for all that sort of stuff. Right, moving on to some Nacon Connect news. As I said, we're only talking about a few things, you know, from the event. But we finally, with, you know, sort of 8 weeks to go, have our first gameplay footage of the Lord of the Rings Gollum. So the Lord of the Rings Gollum is, it's essentially you know, this is an untold story of, you know, Gollum. So it takes place after Bilbo has made off with the One Ring from Gollum, after, you know, besting him with riddles. in The Hobbit, and this is sort of, Gollum's quest, if you will, to try and find the ring again, to find his precious, and then sort of connects up to the events of him encountering Sam and whatever the other one was called, Frodo. I think that's right. But yeah, so we've had concept art, we've had stills and all this sort of stuff, but now we actually have a gameplay footage. So the game is actually being developed by Daedalic, and Nacon are helping them with the publishing and all that sort of stuff. What is interesting is that Daedalic had a game a couple of years ago called Styx, and it was a stealth game where you played as like a goblin who, he could fight very, very sneakily, stabbing somebody in the back or dropping things on their head, but in open combat he just didn't have any lasting power. This essentially seems to be that. So we see here, Gollum and Smeagol. If you listen to the trailer, they're back and forth in the dialogue. So we see it all the time. He's trying to stay in the shadows. He's trying to lure people around. Climbing up to get out of the way. So instead of being in the open there, he's in the water. So it's very much a stealth game where you have to try and avoid being seen. You can cause chaos to people if you need to, but being seen is sort of the thing you don't want to happen. So we finally got the gameplay for that. The game itself is coming out on September 1st for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. The game is coming to Switch, but it will be later in the year for that platform. But honestly, I mean, it looks like it'll be a fun game. Again, it's very, very stealth orientated. It's not supposed to be, you pushing ahead, running up and slicing through folks, 100 times before you get to your next objective. You might see 100 enemies, and you might only directly engage with one of them by dropping, a boulder on their head from high up, right? Or you might throw a rock into, another part of the map to draw their attention away while you sneak behind them. So, yeah, it does look cool. As I said, I am a little worried about it being essentially the same game that Daedalic have done with Styx. They did 2 of those. This just seems to be more of that. It could be very cool, but it'll also be very, very weird. We'll just have to wait and see. Something that we knew was coming, but we now have gameplay for, is an all-new RoboCop game. So RoboCop Rogue City is the full title. Was announced last year at the Nacon Connect event that they hosted. I say announced, there was just a very brief teaser, and you had RoboCop coming in and, pointing his gun, and that was sort of it. But now we have a name, we have a release window of June 2023, so another 12 months away or so. And this one is coming to all the platforms as well, much like, Gollum. But yeah, let's pop the trailer on. So this is being built by Tyon. They're the same folks that have done other games in the past for Nacon. They're generally pretty well received. What is interesting is that Peter Weller, who's the actor who played RoboCop in the first few movies, not the reboot. He wasn't in the suit there, but they they got him in to record all new dialogue as RoboCop. So it has the same voice, so the same feeling as RoboCop as the movies. And if you are underage, I apologize, but this is a very gory trailer. There's a fair bit of blood and stuff, because RoboCop was that type of movie. It definitely wasn't aimed at children. It was essentially, hey, we've got a robot police officer. He's not afraid of taking action where he needs to. So if this is the first time you've ever seen or heard of RoboCop, it's basically, in the near future, Detroit as a city is overrun by criminals. The cops aren't doing anything. So the police force gets privatized, essentially. And the company that takes them over, There's RoboCop himself. The company that takes it over, they have a program where they want to do, they want to bring, more robotics into the police force, but they can't do it just straight robots. I think there's a screenshot of one of the walkers areas, so that's sort of what they initially plan. They get shot down. So when a police officer is severely injured in the line of duty, they use their technology to make a RoboCop, right? Which is what we have here. But they did it in the remake as well. There's this whole thing about is he more man than machine? If he's a machine, he can be programmed to do things maybe against the law, even though he's a protector of the law. So there's a whole sort of sub thing going on in the movies. Now this is set inside the same sort of period as the first three movies, but it's its own original story. So if you're looking for something a little, different, this should definitely be something to keep an eye on. Something to keep an eye on 100% for sure is that Nacon also announced a new Terminator game. That's really it. There's not a lot of information on this one. Even the teaser trailer is just the T-800 here walking in a door or standing in a doorway. It doesn't even really move. So I'm not even going to play it. We do know that it is a survival-focused game. Now, we don't know if they mean survival-focused as in, you have to, grow crops and, try and, Minecraft your way through the world of Terminator, or if it's going to be something completely different. What we suspect is it's going to be more survival like... so my thinking is something like Zombie U from back in the Wii U days, where, your character only has one life, and if they die, you have to sort of, pick up as somebody else and try and complete the mission. They did release a piece of concept art last year when they said they were working on a new Terminator game, which I think looks fantastic. You can see, the Resistance fighters here hiding the T-800 in above them, with the red eyes there. But that's really it. We do know in terms of where it's set. This is set after the events of Terminator 2, but before, John Connor goes back in time. So that sort of time frame between when the Arnie Schwarzenegger, robot melts himself down, and John Connor sending himself back in, or sending, Reese back in time, sort of that period of time there. That's sort of the time frame that Terminator 3 tried to sort of fill. Didn't really work as well as they planned. So, as I said, there's not a lot of information on that one, but it is definitely something that we're going to pay attention to. Right, moving on, we have some good news sorry, not good news, bad news. We have bad news, sad news, gravely defined news. I don't know why I said good, but that is Forspoken, the PlayStation 5 PC game from Square Enix, has been delayed again. The game was initially meant to release back in March. They delayed it early in the year to October to basically give themselves some more time, and that's the reason they're doing it again. They're literally saying, in the message, that all game elements are now complete and development is in the final phase of polishing. So the game wasn't due to release until October 7th, which is, 3 months away. So it is technically possible that they could have completed all the polishing work that they wanted to do before then. They just obviously decided they needed a few more, a bit more time, so they maybe weren't doing, developer crunch trying to get this out the gate. So they've opted to delay it until January 24th. I'm okay with this. I mean, I still have to see more on the game. It just looks a bit floaty in terms of what it's trying to do for me. But as far as, elements go, the fact that it is just straight a delay because they want more time, I'm happy with. We've seen, far too often many companies, they say they're going to release a game on an X date, and then they hit that date, and then we find out, in the week before it or the week after it releases that, the developers just spent 6 months living under their desks, going home one night a week sort of thing, And I'm more than happy for a game to be delayed if it means that the developers themselves are, able to take care of themselves and, you know, sleep. So, yeah, you know, as I said, any delay is sad, but the end result is it will probably have a better game for it. So I'm okay with that. Moving on to some other good news, or to some good news, I should say. E3 2023 is coming back. And this time, ReedPop are helping to build it up. So, since the inception of E3 back in the 90s, yes, E3 is now 20... I mean, if we don't count the 2 years that it didn't actually run, so this year and 2020, E3, I believe, is 26 years old now. 1994, I think it was when it started. But the Electronic Software Association, or the ESA, they were the ones to, you know, basically pull the show together, you know, get people in and all that sort of stuff. Now, you might be wondering who the ESA are. They are... It's the best way to put them. They are a group of, you know, it's not a government group, but they basically are the layer between the government in the US and the game developers. So it's not a union, but you know, they sort of oversee all the games, and they monitor, they do the ratings and all that sort of stuff. Most companies are members of the ESA in the US, but they're not required to attend E3 or anything like that. So E3 coming back is obviously a big thing for the industry, and I know some people will say, you know, E3 is irrelevant and rah, 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 rah. And to them I say, yes, but you've never been. Right, so the way I can describe it, if you're not a gamer, going onto the floor at E3 is the same as if you're walking onto the field if you're an AFL fan, walking onto the MCG on Grand Final day, right? If you're a Union fan or a League fan, walking onto the field for, you know, the final, for that game, right? It's like walking onto the pitch in the, you know, for the final match of the World Cup, right? It's that sort of, you know, hype when you get to the event on the floor. What is interesting is that in the announcement, they did confirm that it would also be the exact wording that they said is E3 2023 will welcome back publishers, developers, journalists, content creators, manufacturers, buyers, and licensors. So the content creators thing is a little weird. I just don't like that whole I'm a content creator, so I get access to everything. Technically, I'm a content creator, if you want to look at it that way. The difference being most content creators will, you know, stand in the middle of a walkway to try and get some content done. So they're very me, which is fine when you're watching the content, but if you're in the middle of somebody trying to do your own thing and somebody jumps in front of you to do something, that's not cool. So with the with them being sort of called out, it means that they're opening up the show more to you know, further, you know, reach out to an audience. Now, we don't know about any sort of public-facing aspects to this. So the ESA, over the last couple of years before the show sort of, you know, went on a break because of the pandemic, they did start opening it up to the public, which it's always very interesting to see the public there because, you know, tickets were, I think, $50 or $60 for a day ticket. And, you know, they got, you know, 4 or 5 hours on the show floor. So it's always very, very, you know, weird to see. The fact that ReedPop are taking over. ReedPop are the same people that run PAX Australia. So if you've ever been to a PAX Australia, it's the same folks that do that. The PAX template was initially designed by the folks at Penny Arcade. So they're sort of just sticking with that. But they run New York Comic Con. They run BookCon out of the US. They do the MCV Gaming in the UK. They did Star Wars Celebration recently, so they manage that as well. So they're very, very good at running events. It's really what they do. So them taking over is very, very good news. So the sort of man responsible for all this is Kyle Marsden-Kish. He's apparently been you know, assigned to lead a new team specifically for the E3 show. So you know, in years past, anyone who's ever been to PAX Australia will know Guy. Guy was you know, he started here in Australia as the PAX sort of, you know, manager of all of it, you know, the content stuff. He then picked up, you know, all the PAXs to sort of oversee all the content for those. And then he picked up, as working for ReedPop, he picked up, you know, the rest a bunch of other shows. So he was sort of overseeing all these things. So for one team to be dedicated to one show is very, very different from what they normally would do. But it shows you the scope of what they're trying to go for. We don't know exactly when this will happen. We do know they've said the second week of June. The question that we sort of we're waiting on an answer for is when they say the second week of June, will it mean the second full week of June? In which case that it will be Monday, June 12 next year, or the second week of June being the second, week of days in June, which would mean the 5th. It's more than likely they mean the 12th because that would line up with the existing dates that the show has gone in the past. Essentially, if it's the Queen's birthday weekend in Victoria and New South Wales, that's the week of E3. It's pretty simple stuff. In the event that it is that week, I wouldn't expect things to be too different in terms of scheduling. Xbox hosted their Xbox and Bethesda showcase, on Monday morning, 3 a.m. here in Australia. That would have been, 10 a.m. Los Angeles time, which was on the Sunday for them, which is the time frame that they've had for the last 3 years as well, even when E3 itself was running. So there's a lot of familiarity with the events we've had already. So I don't think they're going to do anything too drastic in terms of timeframes and scales, but they may do something for that. They may change things up a little bit. Maybe they'll make a 4th day. Maybe they'll make a public day, a bit like Gamescom. Who knows? We really don't know. We have to wait and see. I'll be there. I've still got my credit from my cancelled flight from April of 2020 when that was cancelled. So I definitely still have plenty of airfare to go. So I'll definitely be attending for that one. Interestingly, during the week, we got confirmation of Ubisoft Forward coming in September. Now, Ubisoft Forward isn't something that we know we've had all that many of. We've had 2 big ones, and now this one. We had one this morning with Skull and Bones. We'll get to that in a moment. But Ubisoft Forward is essentially the Nintendo Direct, but for Ubisoft. And the reason why they call it Forward, Ubisoft Forward, is because Ubisoft is looking forward. These are the games that are coming out. These are the updates that are coming out. We're looking forward to, showing you what is happening. So that is what it is. It is the same as the PlayStation State of Play, the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, the Future Game Show, Summer Game Fest. It's all those sort of things. It's just dedicated to Ubisoft. In terms of what is going to be there, we don't know. They've not hinted at anything. It is going to be a very sort of, not an early one, but it's going to be a, awkwardly timed one. So it will be September 11 for us, which is a Sunday. So the show is running on September 10th for the US and Europe because of, time zones. That makes it Sunday, September 11 here. And it means it's a 5 a.m. Wake up for those on the East Coast, or a 3 a.m. wake up if you're in the West. If you're in New Zealand at 7 a.m., you're fine. We have, we have Mario plus Rabbids dated for releasing in October, so there's a chance we might see a new trailer for that. We just got the Skull and Bones event, which we'll get into in a moment, so we might see a trailer for that. Unfortunately, it is Ubisoft, and they love to beat, Rainbow Six to death anytime they can. So expect to see Rainbow Six Siege, an update for that, for whatever reason, whatever the content is. That'll be there. We'll also see, probably information about For Honor. The Crew 2 just kicked off its new year of content, a new season, the other day. So we'll probably see more of that game there. We'll most assuredly see Just Dance because, it's Ubisoft and they love their Just Dance. But in terms of other things, the Settlers, there was a Settlers game that's supposed to release on PC earlier this year. It got delayed a week and a half out. There's no date for that, so that could show up here. We'll very likely see Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, because, that's there. We might see something Star Wars related from them because, they have been working on the Star Wars game over at Massive. We might see something from the Splinter Cell remake. We might see, some new Assassin's Creed, or maybe a new Immortals game. Probably unlikely on that one, but who knows what we'll see. Ubisoft do have some 40-odd studios. Hey, Steve. So we might see, some big surprises. But unless they're really going to, change things up, we probably won't see anything too drastic outside of what we sort of already know. One thing I'm hoping to see more of is the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. That we know that is not coming out this year. It was due out, at the start of last year. It got delayed for a few months, then got delayed to September, then got delayed in September again to an unknown date, and then development moved back from Ubisoft Pune to Ubisoft Montreal, where the game actually got built in the first place. So hopefully we see something for that one. The only thing that I'm hoping that we see something of is I'd love to see something new for Tom Clancy. I don't want to see another Ghost Recon game because the last one didn't do so well for them. I'm sick and tired of seeing Siege because to me that is not Rainbow Six. As I said, Splinter Cell remake is in development. Whether or not we see anything, who knows? It may be a bit too early for that one. I'd love to see them bring back Hawks. Hawks was a great fighter pilot plane flying game that could be cool. There was End War was fun. So they've definitely got a lot of potential in that license that they could take from. We just have to sort of wait and see. But yeah, as I said, September 11th for us. As I said, it's a very early Sunday morning event. We don't know how long it's going to be. We don't know if it's a 20-minute show or a 40-minute show or an hour-long show. These things do tend to go on the longer side, and Ubisoft do what Jeff Keighley does, and they host a pre-show where they reveal things, and they have a post-show where they deep dive into things. So even though we say it's a 5 a.m. start for those in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane, it's 5 a.m. for the main show, but it'll be 4:30 for the pre-show. So they've not announced a pre-show, but they've had one in every other event they've ever done. So we'll wait and see, but that's more than likely going to happen. During the week, we also got the reveal of a new Splatoon-themed Switch OLED model. So the OLED model of the Switch, it's a bigger screen, slightly better battery, better kickstand, improvements across the board. So as the biggest Steve has put here in the Twitch chat, End War I mentioned briefly in my thing about what I'd like to see. Tom Clancy's End War was an RTS game where it made significant use of voice control. So End War was perhaps the only game of its type back in that day where voice commands worked. So you could use the controller on the Xbox to move your units around, or you could just say, armored infantry, move, here. Well, those aren't the exact commands, but you get what I'm saying. Since then, we've got text to speech. So we've got, if you're on TikTok, there's filters where you can put in text and have C-3PO come back and say, what you were typing. So the voice stuff has gotten very, very advanced in the last 10, 15 years since that series last appeared. So definitely could do something fun with it. As I was saying though, on Wednesday night we got the reveal of the Splatoon themed Switch OLED model that is coming here August 26th. The reason why I'm mentioning that is because that was announced at 11 p.m. on the dot by Nintendo of Japan, and then all the other subsidiaries brought up their news for it as well. Because I was so focused in on that, I actually missed. Somebody actually sent it to me and said, "Hey, oh my god, this only has a date." But God of War Ragnarok is coming out on September 9th. So PlayStation actually went out at 11:01 p.m. with their tweet for this one, so that's why I missed it. I saw the Nintendo Switch news, so I was working on that, and this one sort of snuck in after it. We did get a brief CGI trailer, and I say CGI trailer because that's what PlayStation called it. So it's probably rendered in engine, right? It's probably all done in the actual engine that the game uses, but they just called it a CGI trailer. So So that's Atreus is a bit grown up. That's Fenrir, the wolf. Technically son of Loki, but we'll get into that. So the game is coming to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4, as was expected. What is interesting... Nope, that's fine. What is interesting is that there will be 4 editions for this game. Because, I don't know, maybe they saw 2K's plans for NBA 2K23 and thought this was a cool thing to do. I'm not going to go through all the editions. I do have a story on the site for that. Let me grab that and post it in the thing. But basically, the game will come in a standard version, which is just the game, nothing else. There will be the digital version, which comes with a bonus, some extra content here and there. But again, there's nothing too dissimilar from the other versions of the game. And then we get into the Collector's Edition and the Jotnar Edition. So Jot, Jotnar, Jotnar. Both of those come with, let me just jump in here to the thing. Where are we? There we are. So this is the Collector's Edition. It comes with some dice in a bag. It comes with a steelbook, with the wolves on there. It comes with the 2 sculpted figures. Comes in this big box that has some hidden stuff in there, and it comes with a 16-inch replica of Mjolnir. Now, obviously, this does not look like the MCU Mjolnir that we know. This is the one based on the design for the game. It is very, very cool. We don't know how much it's going to cost yet, but it's there. The Jotnar edition is essentially the same, except the dice are a different color, different pattern. The bag is different. It comes with a ring. It comes with a vinyl record. You can see it here with the 2 hands, which comes with 2 tracks from the game. So it's not a full record. It's not a full size one with a half a dozen tracks aside. It is 2 tracks only. It comes with what they call pins, but they are very heavy apparently, and of course the hammer. What is going to be very interesting for that one is the pre-orders for that are due to go online on the 15th of July at 10 a.m. Now, we don't know if that's 10 a.m. here. PlayStation Australia haven't confirmed that, or if it's 10 a.m. in the US. If it is 10 a.m. in the US, that'll be a 3 a.m. Pre-order start on the 16th of July. But we'll have to wait and see. I suspect it's probably going to be, different. If you do want those collector's editions, you'll have to get in early. It wouldn't surprise me if that big, the Jotnar edition was, $350, $400, purely because, they generally are expensive. I am not sure if I would get one of those, mostly because I don't really care for the hammer. It doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't look interesting. I do have the Kratos and Atreus statue from the first, God of War, or the reboot of God of War, if you will, or the sequel, whatever you want to call it. That is behind me. That lives on my shelf. I like that because it is a very cool statue. It's dynamic. It shows, Kratos in action. It shows Atreus, shooting an arrow into one of the Draga. So it's very, very cool. Whereas a replica of a hammer, who knows? It could be something fun, or it could be just a bit of meh. Moving on to the final story of the week, that is that Skull and Bones is apparently releasing this November 8. Now, I do put the word apparently in there because we got told like 5 times that the game was releasing at some point, and then it never did. So that's why I've just said apparently, because the plan is that it will release, but we'll just have to wait and see if that is actually going to be the case. So November 8th is the day when the game was first announced back in 2017. Yes, that's right. This game has been in development for 7 and a bit years, because it was in development long before it was officially announced. It was for PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. Obviously, they've decided, hey, we took so long, let's get this game out on newer consoles. So this game is PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S only. It does, however, support crossplay. So if you have it on PC and your friend has it on Xbox, you can still sail the Indian Ocean together. That is another big change. the game no longer takes place in the Caribbean like it was initially built, because the game is being developed by Ubisoft Singapore, who were the folks that did Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, because they did the sailing portions of Assassin's Creed 3. The sailing stuff, people loved that in Assassin's Creed 3. Black Flag did very, very well, so they basically got permission to make a sailing-focused game, and that is what Skull and Bones is. So I'm not going to play the cinematic here, because again, let me throw the story in the chat there, and I'll put the little box up in the corner for those on YouTube. But it is set, in the Indian Ocean, which, if you're not up with your location of where the oceans are on the planet, the Indian Ocean is off the west coast of Australia. It is the ocean that runs between Africa and Australia. So it is that entire thing. But don't think you're going to be sailing down towards Antarctica. This is focusing on the northern part of the Indian Ocean, which borders India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, places like that. So you'll be sailing from the westernmost portion of it at the African coast, through to the East Indies. So that's there. Now we do have a gameplay overview trailer as well. That is very in depth, and there is a ship customization and combat video as well here to check out. But I actually do have a bunch of footage that we can watch while this plays. So let me just hit play on that one there. So this is just raw gameplay that Ubisoft have provided. So there's nobody talking over it to say, hey, this is what we have, this is what this mode does or that mode. So basically, the purpose of the game is to become the most notorious pirate around. Your entire, what's the best way to describe it? Your entire progression system is tied to how well you do at being bad. So every time you complete a contract, which is what we're seeing them accept here, or you do something like raiding a settlement or pillaging a town, you earn infamy. As you earn infamy, you'll start to level up. The higher up in levels you go, the more things you can do. This is obviously a fair way into the game because they are on a brigantine. As you'll see in a moment, you can modify the weapons that sit on the bow. You can modify the weapons that sit aft. You can modify the cannon types that sit off to the side of the ship. You can modify the crow's nest. You can modify the sides of your ship to provide extra, protection against, attacks like being rammed or boarded. You can add extra armor for shots protection against the cannons. So there's a whole lot of stuff you can do with the ship. As you saw there, there's icons. There's bags and whatnot, hanging off the side. That gives you more cargo space. Before you set out, you have to actually ensure you've got the right gear. You don't want to go off on a quest to raid a pirate town, another town, I should say, and not have any ammunition for your cannons. So you really got to be paying attention. Now, what is interesting is that little ship there. That is generally how you'll start. So Captain Wibbles there is a very, very new player, because when you start the game, you are a pirate of no name. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody cares who you are. Yes, as Steve has put here in the chat here on Twitch, it's not 100%. It's not an authentic recreation of the pirate life from the Indian Ocean. There's still definitely pirates that do sail those waters, especially off the coast of Africa. And so this is not a one-to-one recreation. It's kind of like a fantasy version of the pirate's life. Okay. Now, what is interesting is with your infamy, as that grows, you will be allowed to build bigger and better ships. But the building of the ships requires you to have the blueprints. You don't just you don't go to one of the pirate towns like St. Anne, which is the one that you start in. You don't go there once you achieve a set level of infamy and they go, hey, let's reward you with this. Pirates don't give out anything for free. So you have to get blueprints yourself. And once you have the blueprints, you can then start, building up ships. What is interesting is that the game does support you to play completely solo, so you can do everything on your own, right? You do not have to play with friends or just random people. You can play entirely on your own. If, however, you choose to play with other people, so in the event of you have some friends to do it, it's 3 players. It's you and 2 others, which is a little weird that it's not 4, but at the same time, I do appreciate that it isn't 4. Now, Ubisoft said in their reveal that, you could be on the Brigantine like we are here now, and that could be your way of delivering, damage to things. But you could also then have another ship. Your mate could be on another ship where they are focusing on speed, so getting in and trying to draw attention away from you, while the third friend comes in on a slower but more storage ready ship to load up with everything that you guys have plundered from a town. So as you can see here in the footage, though, they're doing, they're trying to destroy this tower, which will, prevent them from being sunk from a distance. But you'll see occasionally this yellow beam sort of pointing up into the sky, if they turn the camera around. So you'll see that yellow line sort of surrounding going behind the rocks there and everything. And there'll be a yellow beam in a second. There it is. So this yellow beam is the center of the area, of the engagement area. The yellow line is the outside. At the moment, you have members of your crew on land trying to, find the items that you were sent to obtain, and then get back to the ship. The longer you stay there, the more goods that they can pilfer. Right, so you can see a little running chart up there to show, how much they've got and how much is sort of, how many levels are left to, steal. As long as you stay within that boundary, within that yellow line, your crew will still steal stuff for you. If you leave, whatever you have filled up there, so they're on the third icon at the moment, if they leave now, that's all they get. They don't get the rest of it. They only get those 2 things. The problem is, the longer you stay, the more support the fort can call in. They can, shoot up flares to call in for, more support. You can see here they're taking some time to raid a broken ship that was, busted up on the side of this island. So it's definitely a risk-reward scenario where, in order to get the goods, you've got to stay in the zone. But the longer you stay in the zone, the more at risk you are of other ships coming in, trying to raid you, trying to sink you. As you can see here, trying to board you. It's somewhat successful, but, in the end, your team wins. So the more that you sort of do, the more income you gain, and that allows you to get bigger and better ships. And then you can actually have ships that join up with you. So you can have, one ship for speedy encounters, right? That's the ship you go at it. You can have one ship that is nothing but guns. So if you need to decimate a fort, you can use that ship to do so. There are 12 ships in total. So they're doing a bit of inventory management there. And each ship is different. So some ships, again, are fast, some have, bigger storage, and some, take more damage. What is cool is that as you modify the ships, you can modify those stats. So if your ship is built for speed, but you want to be able to do some more damage, you can put different cannons on the ship. You might, lose a bit of speed as you do so, but it's definitely something that you can do. Now, the other thing to sort of pay attention to with this is that it is a PvE based game. So there are other players. Sorry, it's a PvPvE based game. So there are other players that will be in the world doing whatever they need to do. That is the thing that doesn't appeal to me. Not saying that doesn't. It's not a good thing. I'm just saying that's not for me. So it's sort of one of the reasons I don't like Destiny is that it forces you to be online all the time. And I get that's what the game's going for, but it's just not my thing. I want to play this. I want to see more. I want to enjoy more of it. But it's just not. I just don't want that in my game. I want to play it my way, and having to constantly deal with other players who might try and shoot me as I'm trying to complete a mission. Doesn't appeal to my sense of fun. But yeah, so Skull and Bones, as I said, dated for November 8. I mean, I'll be honest. I highly expect it to hit that release date. I don't think it will slip, given that if the game doesn't release this time, I think Ubisoft management will start launching people from a cannon into the sun. But that is the end of all the news that we have for the week. As I said, there's probably more news that we can talk about, but we're going to sort of skip over all that because some of it isn't just that interesting. What we will do, though, is talk about the games coming out over the next 7 days. So today is the 8th, and as we generally don't have games releasing over the weekend, we're looking at July 12, which is next Tuesday, as our first sort of big day where we're getting games released. So it is a very interesting week ahead. There's some big games and there's some weird little games. So on the 12th, on Switch, we'll see Fist Forged in Shadow Torch release. The game did come out last year for PC and PlayStation platforms. This is the Switch is getting it. It is also releasing physically on the same day. So it was announced as coming to Switch last week, and it's out, next week. So it's a very quick turnaround for that one. For PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S owners, we'll see Hellpoint release on the 12th. That is a role-playing game. Blowfish Studios, which are an Australian group. I hate to sort of talk about them because they've sort of gone off the deep end into NFTs and crypto. But they're releasing a game for all platforms called Kurt and the Mythic Wings. Monument Valley is getting a re-release as well on the 12th for PC as the Panoramic Edition. And for Merge Games, we'll see for all consoles next week and PC on the 12th will be Time on Frog Island, which is a nice little, not simple adventure game, but it's, just a fun little adventure game. On the 13th of July, we'll see the release of Loopmancer for PC. Rune Factory 5 will also be releasing on PC for that date. And then for Xbox One and PC will be The Tale of Bistan, which is an action-adventure game. The 14th is a big one. So the 14th will see Azure Striker Gunvolt 2 finally come to Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. Then on the 14th as well, we'll also see Power Wash Simulator come to PC and Xbox platforms. That is also launching inside of Game Pass on day one. So if you are somebody who's looking forward to that one and you have the Xbox Game Pass membership, that will be included for you there. On the 14th as well, from Gearbox Publishing, so not Gearbox Developments, but the publishing arm, for PC will be Eyes in the Dark, The Curious Case of One Victoria Bloom. It is a very interesting looking game. Some people have been playing it and, sort of promoting it already on social media, and they're looking like they're having fun with it. That is a roguelite, platformer. I generally don't play many roguelite games purely because that's not my type of game. But this one does look very interesting. Finally, on the 15th of the month, so that's next Friday, Dread Out 2 will see release on Xbox, and then The Future You've Been Dreaming Of, which is a simulation-based game, is coming to PC. And that is it. That is another episode in the can, so to speak, if you're in Hollywood, which means we're at the end of the show. We'll be back next Friday for another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show, where we're talking about all the news of the week and deep diving into a topic or two, as we like to do. Before then, we'll be back on Sunday for Sunday sessions, where we're playing a random game. Who knows what it'll be this week. And then we'll be back on Tuesday as we play more of our Games Bond series, where we're continuing our playthrough of Quantum of Solace for the Wii. As I said, we'll be back next Friday for more Maxi-Geek Show. The shows do go up on YouTube every Saturday at 12 o'clock. So if you do miss the video and you do want to watch it, elsewhere, you can watch it there. We do try and put in more information there as well with, the cards and whatnot if you are a YouTube aficionado. Other than that, though, we are done. We'll see you next time we're online. And until then, happy gaming.